Pasternak has done, and this is going to be fun. So, Dr. Natalia Pasternak is a science communication professor at Columbia University and an advocate for scientific literacy and critical thinking. She holds a PhD in microbiology, that's the small stuff, and is the founder of Brazil's first organization promoting evidence-based decision making. A fellow of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, CSI, she has also been recognized by the BBC as one of the 100 most influential women of 2021 and one of the 50 most influential Jewish figures by the Jerusalem Post in 2022. An award-winning author, her books challenge pseudoscience and denialism. She is also a columnist for O Globo and The Skeptic of the UK, promoting science-based public policy and rational discourse. Natalia brought crucial life-saving scientific information to millions of Brazilians during the COVID-19 pandemic through her articles, books, and news media appearances, becoming known as, and we so need some clarification on this, the Jennifer Lawrence of Brazil.
So
Welcome,
I
Dr.
found
Pasternak.
out about that last part, and I had to put that in there. We'll talk about that sometime after the talk tonight, I hope.
That would be fabulous. I need to know.
Wow, thank you so much for the introduction and for the Jennifer Lawrence comparison. I'm flattered, but I don't really think it's the appearance that you mean. Well, and we can talk about that later on, but let's start with family constellations and the weird stuff that's happening in Brazil. So I'm
Awesome.
glad to be here with you. Thanks for everyone who joined to learn a little bit about this very particular topic. So I'm going to share my screen. That's it. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about family constellations, or as I prefer to call it, quantum misogyny. And it's a dangerous pseudoscience that has taken over the Brazilian court system. So it's not just a dangerous pseudoscience, it's not just a dangerous kind of psychotherapy, it's also in our court system, in our judicial system in Brazil. So imagine that especially if you are a woman and you have been a victim of aggression, or someone in your family has been a victim of aggression, or rape, or sexual abuse, or maybe some of your children or some children that you know that are part of your family, your circle of friends, was a victim of child abuse. A friend of yours has been a victim of domestic violence. And then you are made to participate in a family constellation session and you are told to apologize. Apologize to your aggressor. You're a victim of domestic violence, of rape, of sexual abuse, of child abuse, and you are made to apologize. It sounds like something unheard of, right? Something impossible. This couldn't be happening. This is ridiculous. It's crazy, but it's real. And it is happening in Brazil, and it's called family constellations. So these are these are statements from women who were subject to family constellation sessions in Brazil as part of conflict resolution in the court system. And these were all published in Brazilian magazines or newspapers. So this is a statement from, all names were changed, okay? It's not their real names. They were afraid of retaliation, of course. So it's just names to illustrate the stories. This is a story about a woman called herself Jessica. She has a child with autism. And during a constellation session, she was told that her child's autism was all her fault. And she was deemed a person with suicidal thoughts. She was diagnosed with a psychiatric disorder. And this is her saying, they told me that because I denied life, I wasn't capable of giving life to my child, that I should accept life and be reborn in family constellation, so my child would be healed of autism. She also witnessed another session, because the sessions are usually open and everybody can participate. And we will explain how the sessions are held in a minute. But she also saw another session of family constellation where there was another woman who reported having been abused by her father. She was told to kneel before the person representing her father, it was not her real father, during the family constellation session, and she was told to beg for this representative forgiveness. She cried and she said that she couldn't do it. She was very emotional in the situation and she just couldn't apologize to her aggressor. This is another story published in another magazine in Brazil of a woman called herself Raquel. So Raquel had been suffering from repeated domestic violence during the 5 years of her marriage, even after her baby was born. After one episode when her ex-husband beat her with the baby in her arms, she finally summoned the courage to leave him and she moved to her mother's. 2 years later, she decided to sue the ex-husband for child support and custody and full custody. The judge, this is a court, family court. The judge suggested a session of conflict resolution using family constellations. And Raquel didn't know what that was. So she thought, okay, the judge is suggesting it's probably going to help. And she accepted. And when she arrived, she was told that, as family constellations go, random volunteers were going to role play her family. So it was volunteers that she never met, and they were going to role play her family. And then the moderator of the family constellation told Raquel to ask for forgiveness from the ex-husband, who was the perpetrator of domestic violence and had beaten her in front of a baby. So this is how it works. There is another story here in another magazine in Brazil. Marcia reported that her ex-husband and reported him to the police after finding out that he had been sexually abusing their 3-year-old boy. She wanted full custody of the child and supervised visits. She was then sued by the ex-husband for parental alienation, and she was asked to take part in a family constellation session. When she arrived, she was told that the ex-husband would play himself. He wouldn't be represented by anyone, but she and the child would be represented by volunteers. And then she tells the magazine that the woman playing her would scream and swear and throw herself to the ground and act like crazy. And the man who was playing her son turned his back to her and wouldn't speak to her. So the constellator, the moderator of the session, concluded that one of Marcia's family ancestors, deceased, dead, had probably sexually abused another family member. And this is why she was making up stuff about her husband. And she reacted to that as a normal person would, I think. And she said, well, you guys are crazy. This is not me, pointing to the woman who was playing her. And that guy is not my son. And still, they tried to force her to kneel and beg for forgiveness. And she refused. She said, no, I'm not going to be a part of it. Then she was diagnosed by the family constellator with paranoid schizophrenia. She lost custody of her child and was barred for having any contact with the child for 5 years. After 5 years and a long lawsuit, she finally got supervised visitation rights, but she was told that the child did not want to see her. So what the fuck is going on in Brazil? Let's begin. Let's take it from the start. Please meet Bert Hellinger and the origin of family constellations. So Bert Hellinger was a German psychotherapist. He was a former Catholic priest. And then he went on to study psychoanalysis, gestalt therapy, and transactional analysis, whatever that is. So he studied a lot of modalities of psychotherapy, and he came up with what he called family constellations. He died a few years ago, so this is very recent. Some people say, oh, it's ancient, it's thousands of years old. No, it's not even 100 years old. It's really recent. And it was invented in Germany by this former priest who really took it out of his hat. He just made it up based on a lot of other therapies and modalities that he studied. This is how it works. So a group of participants, volunteers, led by a trained facilitator, the constellator, will sit in a circle. And one participant is the client, will work on a personal issue. So if you go to a family constellation session, you can be the client. You will say, okay, I have an issue. I want to be constellated. And then we will be constellated by several participants who are all volunteers. The volunteers will serve as representatives of your family members, both alive and dead. So it can be your family members and your ancestors too. And then the facilitator will ask you, what is your issue? And the issue can be anything that you're dealing with, like the example here. So 2 years ago, my husband and child were killed in an accident. I'm trying to learn how to cope and how to live with it. And it may be super commonplace. So not the depression is commonplace, but something that is more regular. I'm 21 and I'm at college and I have been diagnosed with depression and I'm trying to deal with it. So it can be anything from something more mundane or something really awful like traumatic that happened to you. Anything can be constellated. It's just something that you're dealing with. The way that Bert Hellinger explains it has to do with more what he calls morphic resonance or energy fields. If any one of you is familiar with Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance, it's something like that. There is a quantum energy entanglement.
So Rupert Sheldrake is the person, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, who thought he proved that dogs have ESP?
Yeah, it's that guy. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to read it. So Hellinger kind of picks up on that and uses the concept of morphic resonance and quantum entanglement, to explain how the family is connected in energy fields. And family constellation is not just about the energy fields, it's also about a very traditional view of family, sex, and gender. So it's really patriarchal. It's rooted in the traditional family with the father, the mother, the children, and it's based on what they call family harmony and family hierarchy. So hierarchy is really important in family constellation. The father comes first, then the mother who should obey and follow him, and then the children who should obey and follow both parents. So it's really that 19th century model of traditional family, and they stay there in the 19th century, and that's the only family that they accept. Anything other than that is not a family. It's disrupted, it's wrong, and it should be fixed with family constellation. And Bert Hellinger, as you can see here, he did it all out of the good of his heart. He was like a philanthropist, and that's why he trademarked his practice. So if you want to do family constellations, you have to, and use the name family constellations, you have to pay him royalties, or at least his institute, because it's trademarked. This is the Hellinger Schule. It's the Hellinger School of Family Constellations, and you can find it online, and you can do one of his courses, as long as you pay for it, of course, and then you can become a constellator yourself. And then you will learn all all about the energy fields and the quantum entanglement. So you can see here, this is a regular session, a typical session of family constellation going on. It's very common for people to kneel down and ask for forgiveness. So this is a very typical session. And here, of course, I know that you can all see and feel it. You can see the energy, and you can see how the family is all entangled in a quantum field of energy amongst themselves and with the ancestors. So this is the background of how family constellations work. And if you don't have people, it's okay. You don't need people. You don't need volunteers to do family constellations. If you don't have enough volunteers, you can do it with action figures. Because action figures, of course, will feel the quantum energy and the entanglement, and the moderator will know how to place the figures so that they represent members of your family, and will know how to interpret what the figures are trying to tell him or her. But it's okay. If you ran out of Playmobil, you can also use horses, like the Equine Assisted Family Constellations website tells us. And I really like, because they make a very compelling argument about why we should use horses as the representatives instead of human volunteers or Playmobil figures. It's because, if you can see the slide here, horses provide the truth in a way that people can't deny. I love this sentence because it's so true, isn't it? I mean, can you deny it? That horses provide the truth? I can't deny it. Nobody can deny it. Maybe we need a skeptical horse to deny it, because we
Oh man.
certainly can't. And then we have more arguments. Horses live the group experience. So that's also something that we can't deny. They have, this one is really good, 17 discrete facial movements indicating mood or intention. 17. So it's more than a lot of people I know. So I guess that must be right. So yeah, horses, people, they're using horses as representatives, and then someone is interpreting what the horse is expressing in 17 discrete facial movements to come to the conclusion that maybe some of your ancestors abused someone else in the family, and that's why you are behaving the way you do. It's it's almost unbelievable, but it's true. So we have to believe it because it is happening
You could
with
say
people or horses.
you can't make this shit up, but you can.
No, no, you can't. I mean, I couldn't. I could try maybe with cats, because I have two cats at home, so I think they can be representatives of my family constellation, but I could never make up the
To
horses
be
stuff.
fair, I think cats make less facial expressions than horses. I certainly don't think they make 17 different facial expressions. So
Oh no, but they
Yeah,
are
they have
very
two.
vocal.
Yeah, I'm pissed and I'm the queen. That's it.
I'm hungry.
Like that's it.
I don't know. My cats are very vocal. I think they almost talk. So I think they could beat the horses. I would like to see that competition. And look at that. You don't even need to do family constellations only for people's problems. You can do it for countries, international relations. So, yeah, almost unbelievable as well. This happened in the Senate, in a Senate session in Brazil. This is Brazil. Brazil was being represented by this person, and there was another person dressed up with the colors of the Portugal flag. So she was representing Portugal, and she was begging forgiveness of Brazil for having colonized us.
Oh
This was a family constellation session in the Senate,
my
the Brazilian
God.
Senate. Isn't that nice? Maybe you can use family constellations to solve the world's problems.
So did they have to explain what was going on there, or does everyone know it so well in Brazil that it was just obvious what was going on?
I think they had to explain. I would have liked to see the reaction on people's faces, but I didn't actually see it when it happened. I'll see if I can find a recording, because, yeah, this is a good question. I have no idea how people reacted to that. But moving on and trying to understand a little bit more about family constellations. So Bert Hellinger tells us that family constellations are based on the orders of love. Uh, the orders of love are like the ultimate orders, the ultimate laws of the universe. They are above any other kind of law, human laws or even divine laws. It's every kind of law is subject to the orders of love. And the orders of love would be the order of belonging. So everybody in the family has the right to belong. That means that if someone dies or if someone is pushed away, the harmony, the balance of the family is disrupted, and it has to be reinstated with, of course, family constellations. The other order is hierarchy, as we already said. So hierarchy is really important, and it is the hierarchy of a very traditional family. The father comes first, then the mother, then the children. And balance means that everybody in the family has a role, and they are either giving or receiving something. And if those roles are disrupted, then you have an imbalance that has to be restored with family constellation. What that really means in practice is that anything that is seen as disruptive of the family orders is seen as a disease or an imbalance that has to be corrected. For instance, homosexuality is seen as a disease by family constellation practitioners, and they think that they can cure people from this disease. They also explain that homosexuality often results because a boy must assume the feelings of a deceased sister when there are no female siblings in the family to do it, to replace her. And Hellinger himself, when he was still alive, he expressed pride at having cured a person of the disease of homosexuality. So you see how they view anything that stands out from their traditional view of the family, the traditional family. Incest is something really interesting, the way that they deal with incest, or let's call it by its real name, child abuse. And they say, and this is quotes from Hellinger himself, so we are hearing from the master. And he said, now about incest. If you are confronted with cases of incest, a very common dynamics is that the wife withdraws from her husband and refuses a sexual relationship. Then, as a kind of a compensation, a daughter takes her place. This is an unconscious movement, not a conscious one. But you see, with incest, there are two perpetrators, one in the background and one in the open. You cannot resolve that unless this hidden perpetrator is brought in. And then there are very strange sentences that come to light. So the daughter can tell her mother, Mother, I do it for you. And she can tell her father, Father, I do it for mother. So, as crazy as it is, we know what it is. It's just blaming the victim. So it's not the father's fault. The poor guy is just, well, he just wants more sex and his wife is not giving it to him. So he decides to have sex with his daughter. And she says, oh, it's okay. I'm doing it for mother because she's a bad mother and a bad wife. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah, this is family constellations. It's as crazy as you can get. And I decided to bring you some information, especially about Brazil, when this became so popular, about family harmony and traditional family, and where abuse actually happens. So, family constellation practitioners are so keen in restoring the family harmony, as if family was something sacred that nobody can mess with. So let's see what we have about data about domestic violence in family in Brazil. So this is data from the São Paulo Association of Judges. It's a survey about domestic violence. The slides are in Portuguese, and I didn't want to translate them because they're all original slides that I got from the survey itself. So I'm going to translate them here to you. This shows the places where situations of violence against women are most frequent. The first one reads, at home. 66% of the situations of violence against women happen at home. So this is family harmony that they want us to treat as sacred and restore it. These are the main aggressors of women. So the first line here reads spouse, companion, or boyfriend. And the second one is ex-spouse, ex-companion, ex-boyfriend. They make up the most of the main aggressors of women. So it's usually people in the family and people that they know. So much for family harmony, huh? This is the perception about victims seeking help. So 29% only usually seek help from official organs like the police or the courts. 24% usually seek help from people they know, and 42% don't seek help at all. So this is the situation in Brazil. The reason why women who suffer domestic violence or threats do not seek help or do not report their aggressors is mainly 73% fear, 31% shame, and then there's a lot of other reasons like financial dependence. They don't trust the law. They don't trust the court system. They don't trust the police. They forgive the aggressor. They think they can handle it themselves. But mainly it's fear and shame. So this is why it's so difficult for a woman to report. Now, can you imagine that when they finally summon the courage to report the aggressor, who is usually a member of the family, so they finally go to the police, they go to the court, they sue, they start a lawsuit, and then the judge asks for a session of family constellation as conflict resolution. They have no idea what it is. They go, and then they are made to beg forgiveness from their aggressors. How much trust do you think they will have in the court system, in the police system, after being subject to that? And to make it worse, family constellation in Brazil is not just part of the court system, it's part of the national healthcare system since 2018. It's part of what we call the National Policy for Integrative and Complementary Practices, along with 28 other alternative practices, meaning that, yes, in Brazil, there are 29 alternative medicine practices in the public healthcare system, which I have to say is a very good healthcare system that we are very proud of. But we have this flaw, and it takes up a lot of public money and a lot of space, and it's made up with alternative practices that have no background in science. In the judicial system, in the court system, it's been going on since 2012. It has been branded as systemic law by a judge, a local judge in the state of Bahia in Brazil since 2004. It was never really regulated. So in the national healthcare system, it is regulated. It's part of this national policy. But in the court system, it was never regulated. What happens is that judges in Brazil, they have a great degree of autonomy in court. So they can use things like family constellations, even without a proper regulation. And of course, they use it and they claim that, we are not, it's not mandatory, it's just, we are just suggesting. And of course, the person can refuse. But who is going to refuse something suggested by the judge? it's kind of, it's very imbalanced in terms of power. And of course, everybody feels like they have to accept the judge's suggestion because they want the judge to judge in their favor. So it's not really clear how people see it. Even if it's not mandatory, if it's just a suggestion, it's not as easy to deny it. So as I said, it's branded as systemic law in Brazil, also trademarked by this guy here who was he started Family Constellations in courts, and he branded it systemic law and trademarked it. And of course, he also sells courses. So if you are a lawyer or a therapist, anyone can really learn how to be a facilitator or a constellator, and you can buy a course in systemic law in Brazil for approximately $1,000 or 5,000 reais. So it's you can see that it's very cheap. You can become a family constellator, and then you can do conflict resolution in our court system. And then you will learn, if you take this course, you will learn all about abusive relationships, for instance, but from a family constellations point of view, meaning probably something like learn how to abuse your spouse and get away with it. Also, you're going to learn a lot about how children are tangled with their biological families, and it's probably very difficult to disentangle. So let's not adopt because they come with problems from their biological families. We also have to learn how to deal with abortion and its unconscious effects. And of course, from the family constellations, very traditional family hierarchy, the father knows all view, it's probably something like that. Abortion is wrong and it's a crime, and let's prosecute every woman who does it, and every medical practitioner too. So this is probably things that you are going to learn if you take this course, but you will also learn the key to prosperity, which is, of course, taking the course and making a lot of money with family constellation. Wow. Yeah, I know. It's a lot to take in. I run an NGO in Brazil. It's called Instituto Questão de Ciência, or Question of Science Institute in English. And it's an NGO dedicated to promote science-based public policies. We have been trying to do it in Brazil since 2018 when we started. One of the things that we did recently was publish a report about family constellations. So it's called Family Constellations as a Public Policy, Mapping the Debate in Psychology and Law. So we try to bring every information necessary for anyone to understand what family constellations are and how they are embedded in the Brazilian court system and in the health system as a kind of psychotherapy that is accepted in our national healthcare system. This document has really helped us make the point with a lot of other Brazilian organizations. So we also something that is in the report, and I have to mention it. So we have a similar kind of thing to the Freedom of Information Act that you have here in the US. And we can use that to ask the states and the cities for information. So we asked every state, every federation unit in Brazil. Brazil is a federation very similar to the US. So we asked all the states if they were using family constellations in their courts of law. And some states replied, others didn't. Some said yes, others denied it. But we found, even the ones who denied it, we found in news reports that they were actually using it. So if we go back here, you can see in the map that the ones that replied no, we don't use family constellations, are the ones in red. So these are the few states that actually replied our survey and said we don't do it. The ones in blue are the ones that said yes, we do it. And the ones in gray are the ones that didn't reply. But when we survey the news, the local news of the ones in red, then we find out that some of them do use it. They say that they don't, but it is in their local newspapers. So we know that they are using it. The courts where it's usually used deals with domestic violence. So it's usually family courts, and they deal with domestic violence issues, custody, child support. So mainly family court issues. It's supposed to be restricted to pre-legal conflict resolution. At least that's why they usually say that it's not used in regular court sessions. It's just for conflict resolution. But that's also not true. It appears in a number of lawsuits in regular court sessions. It shouldn't be there, but it is being used as well. The reasons for adopting it, or the excuses that some judges give for adopting it, is that it has a high resolution rate and it restores family harmony. So these are both very weird claims, because high resolution rate doesn't mean that the problem is resolved for the family, because we can't measure. There are no metrics to assess that. It only means that if you use it for pre-legal conflict resolution, it means that that conflict didn't turn into a lawsuit. It was stopped before it becomes a lawsuit. So it was resolved in a conflict resolution session. And this is why it has a high resolution rate, because probably it scares the women away and they lose trust of the whole system and they never come back. But you can't say that because it has a resolution rate like that, that it's actually working. And the second excuse is that it restores family harmony. And that's even worse, because it's not a judge's job to restore family harmony. They are not like a marriage counselor. Their job is to distribute justice, not to resolve conflicts between a couple or in a family. And the truth is, there is no follow-up. And there are no metrics to define what resolution even means. It just means that people accepted the outcome of the resolution and they didn't complain. That's what it means. So it doesn't mean that it's working, especially for the women who are subject to it, and it probably isn't. The report that we published was sent to the Ministry of Human Rights, the Ministry of Women, the Ministry of Health, and the National Council of Justice, which is the ethics overseer of the whole judiciary system in Brazil. We also have participated in Senate hearings and parliamentary discussions about family constellations and its use in court. We have published articles in national newspapers and magazines trying to raise awareness to the fact that family constellations is pseudoscience and it's being used in court and it's harming women, it's re-victimizing women, and it's harming children too. We published a joint technical paper with the Federal Board of Psychology because they were also worried about the use of family constellations as a type of psychotherapy. And in general, the Institute in Brazil, my NGO, we have been raising awareness about all sorts of alternative medicine since our inception in 2018. Also, I published with my co-author, the science journalist Carlos Orsi, also known popularly as my husband. We published our third book together in Brazil. It's called What Nonsense, Que Bobagem, in Portuguese, What Nonsense in English. It became, we are very proud to say, it became a bestseller in Brazil. So this is why you see #1 here in the Amazon website. And it's about 12 popular pseudosciences in Brazil. There is one chapter about family constellations, and the other chapters are about the pseudosciences that I suppose you are already familiar with, like homeopathy, acupuncture, crystal healing, Reiki, all that stuff. So it's popular pseudosciences in Brazil. And we know from experience that changing mindsets about pseudosciences that are popular, that have an emotional appeal, with a certain population is very difficult, because we have been working with homeopathy in Brazil for a while, and homeopathy is very popular, very traditional in Brazil. It's part of our cultural background and heritage. A lot of people are emotionally attached to homeopathy. It's a regular medical modality in Brazil. It's accepted as a medical modality, so you
Na-
can
Na-
specialize in homeopathy after you
Natalia,
finish.
can I ask you? So
Sure.
homeopathy, if I'm not wrong, comes from a German creator. Is that right?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And so does Family Constellation. Is there any coincidence there, or just a
I
coincidence?
think I think it's a coincidence, really, because the origins of homeopathy in Brazil have to. It came mostly. It was invented in Germany, but the Brazilian roots are French. It came from a
Ah,
French influence in Brazil with Spiritism. So it's connected to kind of a spirituality as well.
interesting.
So I think it's just a coincidence. It's different roots. But anyway, we have a lot of experience trying to debunk homeopathy in Brazil, so we know that these things take time. And it takes a lot of investment. And that's why we took the trouble to publish the report and to publish the joint report with the Federal Board of Psychology. And we will keep going, because eventually we'll get there and we'll be able to raise awareness to a greater number of people. And it becomes more widely known that it is a pseudoscience, and people start to question it. And that's probably how we're gonna, well, at least try to bring it down. With homeopathy, we had a lot of good signs in the recent past, especially after we published the book. And we have it's actually a very funny story. So after we published the book, and there was one chapter about homeopathy, and we had already been talking about homeopathy since 2018 in Brazil, writing a lot of other book chapters and reports and in popular magazines and newspapers, and doing lectures and everything. But then the book became a bestseller. And after the book became a bestseller, the vice president of the Federal Board of Medicine in Brazil actually gave a public statement saying that, well, maybe it's time to review homeopathy as a medical modality. So we were like super surprised, and we celebrated and said, wow, finally, it's the vice president of the Board of Medicine. But yeah, well, unfortunately, after like a week or so, he was he was removed from his position. And homeopathy is still there. So we're still fighting, and we'll keep on fighting, not just to try to bring homeopathy down, but all the other pseudosciences.
So were you implying there's a connection there? Was he removed for that reason, or was there some other stuff going on too?
No, he was probably removed for that reason.
Damn.
There was a great pushback from the federal board after he was removed. They published a lot of reports and statements saying that homeopathy was true science, and well, they tried to. They ran a whole campaign of defamation about me and my co-author to try to discredit the book. And discredit the institute as well. So to finish up, I would just like to say that I would like to come to a place in my country, in Brazil, where no woman is ever made to apologize to their aggressor in a court of law, in front of other people, and relieve her trauma, because it is, first of all, it's against the law to re-victimize people. And second, it's plain pseudoscience, it's patriarchal, it's misogyny. And as I said, it's quantum misogyny. It's misogyny that has like completely nonsense explanations, and it shouldn't be used to victimize women. So I would like to come to a day in Brazil where all women can say, no, we don't apologize, and we won't apologize to our aggressors, and we won't make our children apologize to their aggressors, and we don't apologize for being women, because this is what it's being asked of them. And this can't go on in Brazil. And I will do everything that I can to stop it. So thank you very much. And I'm open to questions and thoughts
Thank you so much,
from anyone.
Natalia. That's disturbing. I mean, there were some people here who were, I don't know, it might have been hard to hear all of this, and that's the same thing that happened when you gave the speech live at PsychCon. It's unbelievable this is going on in the 21st century in a modern country. And if people don't know much about Brazil, South America. I mean, Brazil's got about the same population as the United States, if I'm not incorrect, right? It's a huge nation and a modern nation. This is what's going on there, and there's no reason that it won't spread here if we're not careful. So, okay.
Well, actually, the equine constellation is in the US.
Oh, you want to say some more about that?
So you can go for the horses.
I mean, I've heard of equine therapy.
I've not heard of
No,
that.
not the same.
No, but that's very different from the, yeah. Okay. Wow.
Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. All right, so we didn't get that many questions, but we do have some. So if people haven't put it in there, or maybe we missed it, put it in the chat again. I did get one, at least one. Let me read that one first. I've been adding questions myself just in case some didn't come in. So we have a bunch of questions, even if no one else types another one in the chat. But one that someone did put in the chat was, what is your advice to those who have been through this constellation nonsense and are damaged by it and are looking for healing? What advice would you give them?
I couldn't give advice. I'm not a licensed therapist. So what we usually do with the Institute, if someone comes looking for advice and wondering what to do, is that we refer them to real therapists, real psychologists, and we work together with the Federal Board of Psychology to do that. And we also refer them to lawyers that can help them in the court system to try to make it right if they were damaged by this in a lawsuit.
So another question just came in. Did the inventor of this modality ever remark on why so many issues are seemingly all caused by women?
He was a very conservative Catholic priest. So I don't know. I never met him. From when you read his stuff, you have the impression that he's like a true believer. He actually believes that stuff.
It is referred to as Eve's sin. So, here we are.
Oh my, I wonder if that's ever mentioned in there. So in the write-up, and maybe I missed it if you were speaking about it, in the write-up I did mention that you said this is also connected to deceased relatives. So yeah, like how do they talk about it that way?
What they say is that the whole family is connected by energy fields, even the deceased one. So they believe in reincarnation of the soul. They believe that the soul of the relatives is around somewhere, and it's still connected to the family. And that's why things that happen with your ancestors can have an effect on what's happening to you now. That's the explanation.
I wonder if it matters if you were farmers and had horses and you were, mean to your horses or something, and that comes out even more. I don't know. All right, we have another
You have to
question.
ask the horses.
I noticed something about abandoning children to make them stronger on one of your slides, and they wanted to ask for more information about that.
I don't know which slide that is. Abandoning children.
To make them stronger. I don't recall seeing that one.
Yeah, no. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay, while you're looking, let me ask another one. So how is the Board of Psychiatry fighting this in their profession?
Psychology.
Psychology, yeah.
Yeah, because psychiatry is a medical modality, so that would be the Board of Medicine in Brazil. So they are trying to. They wrote the joint report with us. They also tried to talk to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Human Rights. But it's difficult for them, and they try. They have a different approach. So what they have been pushing to do is to have it mandatory that psychotherapies are only practiced by licensed practitioners or real psychologists, because anyone can become a family constellator, for instance. You don't need a background in psychology or medicine to do that. So this is something that they argue about, but this is like a class action. It's something that they do as the psychology board. So I think they're trying to, but they encounter the same obstacles that we do. It's really ingrained in the court system. There are lots of excuses. As I mentioned, they say it's not mandatory, it's just a suggestion, and all the judge is trying to do is conflict resolution. It's not an actual lawsuit, and it's not regulated. And the judges do have a lot of autonomy in Brazil.
Thank you.
So we have a couple more. We have a couple of other questions as well, but I had one that kind of stems from some of the things you've already mentioned, and that is, this seems strikingly as a kind of counter, a more of a um, cultural counter to perhaps the perception of Brazil becoming more liberal, more secular, getting away from, the Catholic hierarchical, patriarchal history. And is that something you've noticed? That, like, because I mean, judges and a lot of these institutions that seem to be promoting it are inherently conservative. And I mean that in the generic sense of conservative, not necessarily ideological all the time. But is that something you kind of noticed?
It is, and you mentioned Brazil becoming more liberal and getting out of maybe the Catholic heritage, but the Catholic Party may be right, but we've seen a growth of evangelical religion in Brazil
Yeah.
recently. And it's really popular, and it's very regional. So there are some regions in Brazil who look more secular and maybe more liberal, but Brazil is huge. And there are lots of regions who are really conservative, really religious, either Catholic or evangelical. And then this resonates well with them, this idea of the traditional family with the father, the mother, and the children, and the hierarchy that you have to respect your elders. So I think it resonates a
Mm.
lot with what people are used to, with their moral values.
That sounds very similar to a lot of the broad geography here in the States as well. Like you've
Yeah.
got, communities that have gone away from a more Catholic and more evangelical, and even some of the polling around, like, that are supposedly, unchurched, but really when it boils down to it, they still believe, most of the things. They're just not wanting to identify themselves with a so-called, like, institutional religion, hence the evangelical moniker, allows them kind of a way out of that. Interesting. Okay. We definitely do have some more questions. So one, I think you mentioned this, a bit, but as far as the second element of love, the hierarchy there, with men, of course, leading the family. Uh, you know, you mentioned their kind of antipathy to homosexuality. So, like, I mean, what would even happen if a same-sex parent with a child? Like, do you know of any instances in which that has come up? I mean, how would they even handle that?
I have no idea. I know that they really view homosexuality as a disease. It has to be cured.
Right.
So I have no idea if maybe a couple comes with a child and say, we want to do a family constellation session. I have no idea if they would turn them away or they would just say, okay, come on, we can heal you.
Yeah, I don't imagine that session lasting very long.
No,
If the couple didn't already know what was going on and was basically just there to, I don't know, cause a disruption. Yeah, I can't imagine that lasting very long. Um, so with some of the work you've done and some of the pushback that's happening and it's hopefully growing, is this something that you've noticed that is spreading? I mean, has it at all, have you noticed, been halted in its spread at least, or is it still something that's going, nope, we're full speed ahead?
it's difficult to measure. I think we would
Hmm.
have to map it again, maybe in a couple of years, to see if the situation has changed with the states. But you see that a lot of states reply that they don't use it, but they actually do. And most of the states did not reply to the survey at all. So we have no idea how many states, how many cities in Brazil are actually using Constellation in their courts of law for family issues. And it'll be very difficult to measure that because it's conflict resolution, so it's not going to appear in a report or anything like, oh, this was solved with family constellation. It will say, no, this was done with conflict resolution. And then inside the conflict resolution, the judge might have used family constellation to like guide the process, but it's not something that it's official, so it's very difficult to measure.
Hmm. Okay. And so another question. So of all the things the question of science Institute is doing, how high does this rank? What's the, like, if you had to, resources that you're, putting towards things?
Now, this is one of our top priority projects
Hmm.
with IQC because it is doing a lot of damage to Brazil, and it's really serious damage. As I said, re-victimizing women who suffered, who were victims of domestic violence in Brazil is against the law. There is a law against it, that you can't make women relieve their trauma. And this is exactly what family constellation sessions are doing, because they role play the whole thing, and then to top it off, they make the woman ask forgiveness. So this is one of our top priority projects. But as I said, it's really difficult to get the attention of the ministers and of people who could really put an end to it. So we have been trying to push it with the National Council of Justice, but we haven't heard back from them in a while. Then we had the attention of the former Minister of Human Rights in Brazil. We almost got a meeting with him to discuss family constellations, but then he was fired for sexual harassment. And then now we have a new minister. And we haven't been able to talk to her. Yeah. So, you see that things are not that easy in Brazil.
Wow. So has the organization or anyone else made any attempt to gain the real stats on the resolution question? Like, I guess it would involve going into court records and tracking down families and getting a, private audience with the woman to, to put some pushback on the fact that they think that these things are satisfactorily resolved.
Yeah, it's really difficult to do that. Uh, it's an ongoing project, so it's hard to get people to talk. Those
Yeah, I
statements
can
that you
imagine.
saw in magazines in Brazil and newspapers, it's all under false names. Not one single woman agreed to give her real name. So they are really afraid. And as I said, it's a very difficult position to be in, because if you have an ongoing lawsuit, you don't want to go against a judge. You don't want to look bad in their eyes, and you don't want to look like you're not cooperative, like you're not willing to do your part. So it's very difficult to get women to talk because they are in an imbalanced position. because they don't want to talk about their trauma, and we have to respect that. And going after court records, it's not official records. So we don't have any real data about the use of family constellation. It's very difficult to find out what's really happening. So yeah, it's gonna be a hell of a job trying to uncover everything and trying to get more data about where it's being used, how it's being used, how many people are affected, and what the results are. So I'll tell you in a couple of years.
Yeah. So a general question on the acceptance of this against and other pseudosciences in Brazil, and science denialism and that sort of thing. What do you think is the impact of Catholicism and other Christianity in Brazil on that?
As I said, I think it resonates with a lot of moral values that are so, well, so similar to religious values, and especially those about family. So I think family constellation really resonates with a lot of religious and moral values in many religions, not just Catholic, evangelical, but many, well, most religions are really sexist. And
Yeah. I think
don't
I've
know.
noticed
I
that.
don't
I
know if
think
any
I've noticed that.
yeah,
It's been a theme that we've covered. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know any religion that is not at least a bit sexist and has this kind of family hierarchy. So all religions are like based on the traditional family model. So I can see why family constellation might look so natural to a lot of people, might just make sense. And the other kinds of pseudoscience that are very popular in Brazil, like homeopathy, for instance, they have a whole joint history with Spiritism, which is not a form of Christianity. It's not Catholic, it's not evangelical, but it is Christian. They call themselves Christians, but it's based on like a doctrine that came from France. I don't know if you have probably you probably know more about it than I do, from Allan Kardec in France, and it's become very popular in Brazil. And the first medical doctor who brought homeopathy to Brazil was also in Spiritism. He had that religion, so he kind of combined everything, and they all
Yeah,
went
I
together.
actually had never heard of that connection before, spiritism to homeopathy. That's interesting.
In Brazil, it's really connected.
Huh. No,
So
I don't
we
remember.
had
I heard that mentioned.
at the beginning of homeopathy in Brazil, we have reports that show that homeopathy was performed by mediums who received the spirits of doctors,
Oh,
and
this
the
is
doctors,
fascinating.
yeah.
This must be a total cultural change thing, because this has never come up in any video conversation or anything I've ever heard about skeptics pushing back on homeopathy in the US. Never heard that.
Oh, then you should bring Carlos to talk about it, because
Yes.
he's written a lot of stuff in Brazil about the connection between Spiritism and homeopathy.
Fascinating. Well, so we don't have any more questions right now on family constellations. If anyone else wants to put one in the chat, you can. But because of that, I'm going to just ask you some general questions about your own background. So, how did you start the Question of Science Institute?
Oh, okay. So we started it in 2018. Well, I founded it with three colleagues that were also working independently with some kind of project in science communication. So I was already working with science communication before IQC. I'm a microbiologist by background. I come from the lab. I did my PhD studies and my postdoctorate studies at the University of São Paulo. But after a while, I decided to start working like on a side job with science communication, because I really liked writing about science. And I started writing about microbiology. But then I stumbled upon a lot of weird beliefs that people had about science and pseudoscience. So I started writing about that as well. And then I realized that there was a lot of work to do, and it would be very hard to do it as one person independently, like writing a blog or writing for a magazine. So by the time that I founded the Institute, I was writing for a health magazine in Brazil, and I was still working at the university. And I met with these three other friends who were in very similar situation, and I said, and one of them actually said, what we need is an institution. It will be very hard to do it individually. We need an institution. We need something like an NGO that can really work officially to promote science-based policies. And we were all working with this kind of communication that really tries to raise awareness to the sound use of science and the dangers of pseudoscience. So we knew what we wanted to do. We didn't want to just communicate general science. We wanted to communicate the science that you need to understand to make good decisions. So after that conversation, when my friend said, we need an institution, we need an NGO, I said, okay. And well, he's a lawyer. So I said, well, you're a lawyer. What do we need? If we want to start an institution, what do we need to do? Can you just put it on paper and maybe we can do it? And then we did. So this is how it started. It started with a conversation that among four friends. So we started the Institute in 2018, and then in November 2018, and then 1 year later, COVID hit. So we were 1 year old with the Institute when the pandemic hit. And all of a sudden, I was the president of an NGO that promoted science-based public policies, but I was also a microbiologist. So I was the right person in the right place. I was used to doing science communication. I was used to speaking in public, to speaking to the public. I was used to translating science in a way that people could understand. I had a lot of experience communicating science, and so did my colleagues. So we became like the go-to institution in Brazil. And I became a public figure in Brazil, which is something really, really weird, because I wasn't expecting that. When we started the Institute, I thought, okay, we're going to be like a niche institute, and we're going to talk to specific stakeholders and maybe a part of the general populace that will be interested in science. But we never envisioned becoming like a very public institution that is on TV every other day explaining the pandemic to people. So
So
that came as a
speaking of being on TV explaining the pandemic, yes. So I teased at the beginning of this that you became known as Jennifer Lawrence of Brazil. And if people, I'll explain that connection, and then you could tell everyone what you did that made that connection. There was a movie at the time the pandemic started called Don't Look Up. Jennifer Lawrence was one of the stars, and she was played an astronomer who discovered that the Earth was going to be destroyed by a comet or meteor, I forget, but one of those two things. And it was like unstoppable, and it was going to, hit the Earth, and maybe we could do something about it if we had enough notice and got NASA involved, to hit it. So she is going around with the other discoverer of the comet on television. And while she's trying to explain the dangers, the people who are interviewing her on the TV show are cracking jokes and making fun. So Jennifer Lawrence's character goes crazy and just screams on air, like, "You're not paying attention." Okay, so that being out there in the news, then you went on the news, and what did you do?
something very similar. I wish you had the video. The video is really funny. I can't believe my own face when I see it on camera. But what happened is that I was a regular commentator in the evening news for a TV station in Brazil, and I was there, and they just showed a video, a news video, a news piece that they did about Christmas, and it was 2020. So it was before the vaccines. We didn't have any vaccines in Brazil. in December 2020. We had our first vaccination in January 21. So we didn't have any vaccines because Bolsonaro didn't purchase them. So there was this piece about how to celebrate Christmas without getting in trouble with your family, with that, that uncle who wouldn't wear a mask or refused to social isolate, even if he had symptoms. And so the news piece was how to handle that. But the way that they showed it in the video was with, I don't remember if it was a psychologist or psychiatric, it was some kind of therapist that they were interviewing, and the person was saying that we should take it lightly and with humor and make jokes about it and laugh about that person who refuses to wear a mask when you invited them to the Christmas dinner. And as a microbiologist and a spokesperson for the pandemic, and me and my colleagues, a lot of other scientists in Brazil, we were trying so hard to raise awareness to the Christmas celebrations and New Year celebrations, saying that keep it small, keep it in a small circle in your family. Don't throw a big party. It's going to be dangerous. We don't want big gatherings of people because we are not vaccinated yet. And if you have to throw like a family dinner, then please make sure that everybody is wearing a mask or the windows are open and there's enough ventilation. So we were trying so hard to raise awareness to all the precaution that people had to take, and then comes this video saying, oh, take it lightly, make a joke about it, don't get in trouble with your family. And then I just reacted. I just couldn't stand it. And the look on my face, they filmed it while the video was on, and I was like this. And then the reporter asked me, the journalist said, oh, so what do you think about the video, Dr. Pasternak? And I looked at her and I said, are you crazy? You're gonna kill someone. I mean, there is no way that we can take it lightly or make a joke about it. People are dying. And that's how I said it. So I got really angry that day because of the way that they made it. Really, it was not that I got angry at the people, but I was angry at the news piece and the way that it was broadcast, saying, oh, take it lightly, make a joke. He said, oh, we can't joke about it. We can't joke about people dying. It's not funny.
And that went viral at just about the same time that the movie was out. So people made that connection. Yeah, and
I have a confession to make. So
yes, please.
Well, in 2020 was Christmas time. It was the holidays, and it was the first time that I watched the movie. So I was watching the movie with my husband, and when we saw the Jennifer Lawrence scene when she loses it in front of the camera on national television, I actually said to my husband, wow, I would never do that.
Nice.
So, and the video was already out. It was already out on social media. I just hadn't seen it yet, but I had already done it. It's not that, and I didn't even realize it.
So was that a repressed memory already? You just pushed that out of your mind?
Probably, yeah.
So were you invited back on other TV news shows to talk about the subject afterwards? And
Yep.
did that reaction come up? Did they mention what had happened?
They didn't really. They were probably very happy that it went viral and everybody was watching the video, the clip from the news show. But no, I was still a regular commentator until throughout the whole pandemic. They really liked my work, and I think they forgave me for the outburst.
Okay, so folks in the chat who are still here live, too bad people who are watching this on YouTube later, but for right now, if anyone can find that on Google, please put the link in the chat because I looked before and I think it's been taken down. I couldn't find it anywhere,
No,
Natalia.
it's probably still there. I'll find it for you.
All right, we got a few more minutes. Dave, you want to ask some more questions?
Yeah. Okay. So, there's been a couple. What do you think is the kind of like future orientation concerning Brazil broadly and like pseudoscience and kind of the work being done broadly in helping improve science education there?
It's a difficult job, David. I usually say that when we started the institute in 2018, my dad, who was very he was very optimistic, still is a very optimistic person. And he said, wow, this is great, an institute to fight pseudoscience, but you should have like a plan B for the future, because what are you going to do with the institute when people stop believing in the pseudosciences? And I said, yeah, Dad, hold your beer.
Wow, that is certainly optimism.
It is, isn't it? It was so cute. But yeah, I don't think unfortunately, we're never going to be out of a job. And there'll always be weird stuff that people believe in that need clarification, that need debunking. So Carlos Orsi, my husband, he's a science journalist, and he always says that there is no repetition when you're dealing with pseudoscience and debunking mis and disinformation. You have to repeat it over and over again. There will always be someone who's hearing it for the first time and who needs clarification or who has just been exposed to this or that pseudoscience and needs clarification. So he says something that I think like sums it up, what our job is. And he says that our job is to make scientific information circulate in a
Hmm.
way that it's easy to find, easy to read, easy to understand. This is our job. We have to make sure that it's out there and that people can find it when they Google it. I mean, if they are going to Google, like to make it very timely, vaccines and autism, they're going to find the correct scientific information about the link or the absence of a link between autism and vaccines. So information has to be easy to find, easy to understand. And this is our job. And we have to keep doing it because there is no repetition. People will need it all the time.
Is Wikipedia as popular in Brazil as it is, so the Portuguese version of articles as the English version of
Uh,
Wikipedia?
It's restricted, of course, because Portuguese is not such a widespread language. But I think it's used in Brazil. We had some problems with the Portuguese version of some pseudosciences or even biographies. But I think it's like a local problem because Wikipedia depends pretty much on the editors. So if you have Wikipedia editors who are ideologically inclined to one side or the other, you might have problems. I think this is the only issue that I see with Wikipedia. I think it's a good source of information, but it has to be checked. So we shouldn't just take it for granted that because it is on Wikipedia, it's true. We know it isn't. So if you use Wikipedia, you have to use it with a grain of salt. You have to use it, okay, this is a good source of information. Let me check the websites, let me check the references and see where it's coming from. And so I don't think that people usually do it, even in English or Portuguese. So I think that this is something that maybe we should be raising awareness to as well.
Okay, thank you. Got another one, David?
Yeah. So, honestly, this came up a little bit because there's sometimes there are issues here with people who push back on certain things. Have you, a little bit more personal, but um, have you ever found yourself, I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier that there was a kind of concerted campaign against you and your husband. I mean, has that ever gone more serious than, hey, these people are, awful, whatever, don't listen to them. They're, undermining the true faith kind of thing, or yeah.
Well, it depends on what you mean by serious. There has been all sorts of defamation campaigns against me because I was a public figure during the pandemic. So I'm kind
Mm.
of used to that. There was a video circulating for some time saying that I was a fake biologist, that I've
Huh.
never been to university, I didn't have a college degree. So it's things that are so easy to check, really, that it really puzzles me why people believe in it, because this is really easy to check. For instance, you can go to the university website to check if
Hmm.
I graduated there in biology school, and if I have a PhD. It's all public information. So I was sued 3 times in Brazil. The first one, I was sued by the Federal Board of Biology for not paying them and for saying that I am a biologist and not paying them. And I won, so that was okay.
Good.
But it so happens that the person who denounced me to the Board of Biology was actually the president of the Brazilian Association of Ozone Therapy, which is another kind of
Oh, go
pseudoscience.
figure.
So it's a person who
Gee.
already had a lot of things against me. So she decided that maybe it was a good idea to try to
Mhm.
get me in my profession, but she didn't know that I'm not required to have a license, like a biologist license, unless I'm working in the field, which I never did. I always work in the lab when I was at the university. So still the board tried to sue me because I was not paying my annual fees. And then I defended myself and I won because I didn't have to pay them anything because I don't work in the field as a biologist.
Mm.
I never did. So that was one. Then I was sued again. There was an attempt. It didn't go through, but someone tried to sue me because of a YouTube show that I did during the pandemic. It was like a comedy show. It was called The Plague Diaries, and it was me and another professor. He was a professor of virology, and he was also the director of a hospital. So he was going through the pandemic. It was really hard on him. And we are close. We decided to do this YouTube show once a week to provide information and clarification about everything pandemic related. But we also did it as a comedy show because we also needed to we needed some space to really laugh about it and be with friends. So it was a YouTube show. It was the only time in my life that I actually did YouTube. And we did it once a week. It was called The Plague Diaries. And I would do the opening every week saying that, oh, so this is the Plague Diaries, where we meet every week to talk about the plague that's haunting Brazil and also about COVID-19. So I was obviously referring to the president. So
Yes.
someone tried to sue me for how was it that they framed it, for attacking the honor of the president of the republic.
Oh,
Wow, that's
So
lawsuit
that was,
worthy
no.
there.
but that didn't go through. So they couldn't even start the lawsuit. It was barred from the
Ooh.
start because the public prosecutor saw it for what it was and said no.
Yeah.
So that was the second one. And then
Mm.
I was sued again. This was an actual lawsuit that lasted for 2 years, and then I won. I was sued by the Brazilian Association for Vaccine Victims. Yeah, because
Wow.
I called them the first anti-vax Brazilian association in a
Mm.
newspaper article that I wrote. So they sued me for calling them an anti-vax association because they were not an anti-vax association. They were an association for vaccine victims. And they didn't like being called an anti-vax association, even though I gave them the credit for being the first. But they didn't like it.
was not a was not a achievement they wanted to have.
Yeah, no, they didn't see it as a badge of honor. I did. And they are the first Brazilian anti-vax association. This
Mm,
lawsuit actually lasted for 2 years,
mm,
and then I won. So that
All
was
right.
it. It depends on how you see serious stuff. I mean,
mhm.
hate speech on social media, I had plenty, but lawsuits, I had three. I had a lot of people writing weird stuff about me, making up stuff about me. So I was a fake biologist. My father once became the vice president of the university. My father was not even a professor, but somehow he became the vice president of the university, and he was the one paying me for speaking about the pandemic or something like that. So people
Right.
made up.
Because you couldn't achieve it on your own, of course.
Of
You had to
course
be
not. Yeah, I
right.
had
Yeah. Okay.
there needed to be a man behind me, or
Mm,
especially my father,
yeah.
which was really really weird because then uh, I did a print. It was on Twitter, I think, that someone said, "Oh, but what you don't know about Dr. Pasternak is that her father is actually the vice president of the University of São Paulo." And then there was a whole story. And then I sent the print to my dad and I said, "See, you're the vice president." And he replied, "Where is my retirement plan?"
Yeah, yeah, I was figuring, like, wait a minute. They haven't been paying me. Oh, that's nice.
So there were all sorts of lies were spread about me, and I think it's part of the game, really.
Mm,
You learn how to deal with it,
right. Right.
because otherwise you can't do your job. But there's one thing that I did after the pandemic was coming to a halt. It was in a more controlled space. I think it was the end of 22, 23. I quit social media. So I had a Twitter account, which was where I didn't really engage with people because I couldn't. I tried at the beginning. I tried. I wanted to be there to answer questions and to really bring information and clarification to anyone who needed it. But as it grew, and I had a lot of followers, uh, there were just too many people there, and I just couldn't provide clarification to those who needed it because people would post so many comments that I would just lose the few ones who actually wanted to ask real questions about science. So this was the first thing that happened. I stopped engaging with people on social media. Then I just used it as like a window to my work. So I
Mm,
posted my newspaper columns, I posted an article that I wrote, and I would make just very quick remarks like, "Oh, look at this article that I published in this newspaper. It's about X, Y, or Z." And I posted it. And that was it. So I didn't go through the comments. I just posted it and left. And after a while, I decided to stop because even just posting wasn't effective because there were so many people and so many bots and trolls going in and posting comments that had nothing to do with the original post or the article that I was trying to share, that it became ineffective. And then I quit. So I don't have a social media account anymore. I don't have a Twitter or Facebook or Instagram account. I have a LinkedIn account that I rarely use. And I do most of my work in newspaper articles and books and teaching, of course.
mm,
But it was a personal choice. I just decided
mm,
that it wasn't working anymore to do the job. But the Institute has a presence in social media. So the Institute has all accounts in all social media like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So I say, okay, the space, it's there. Information is going out, but it's not a personal account where people feel that they can go there to harass me or to say that they hate me or that my mother is ugly. She's not, by the way, or that they don't like my cats. So
Okay, well, so thank you. We're going to wrap up this section here. So since you're not on, usually we ask the guests at this point to tell people where they can reach you on social media, but you've just said you're not on anything. How can people possibly reach you then?
LinkedIn, it's the only thing I have.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Okay, people, you got to get a LinkedIn account to talk to Natalia.
But you can look for IQC. IQC
Okay.
is on all social media.
Okay. So I thank you so much for spending your time with us today for this talk. And we're going to go to the Hangout shortly. If you can stay, that'd be great, but you don't have to. So I want to thank everyone who's involved today. David for co-hosting with me, Glenda for all her excellent work, and Kara somewhere off there. I'm sure they are still watching and listening. So next week we have Neil, the 604 atheist. He's going to be talking about human rights over human beliefs. And then upcoming guests include Greg James, Stephen Novella, Nicholas Suter, Eric Matthews, and Margaret Downey. So that's a whole bunch of interesting people on different topics. So, although Natalia is no longer on social media, RFR is, so follow us on social media. Glenda might be putting the links in the chat, but I'll try to say what they are out loud here for the recording. We are on Linktree at Recovering from Religion. Facebook, also, same Recovering from Religion. Instagram is RFR.org. TikTok is at Recovering from Religion. I see a pattern there. And Blue Sky is recoveringfromreligion.org. And as was mentioned before, we also have a YouTube channel. There's a bunch of videos there, most of which are RfRx recordings, 226. As of right now, we are Recovering from Religion on YouTube. And lastly, David, can you tell everyone about the benefits of volunteering with this wonderful organization?
Absolutely. Also, and as well, Natalia, thank you. That was at times brutal to hear. While at the same time, it's I'm reminded of the kind of a paraphrase variation on the only way for bad science to win is for those who are dedicated to the good science to be silent, and you are not silent, and it is wonderful to see what you're doing. The benefits of volunteering. First, nonprofit would like everything you see here. We're not getting paid, other than in like the sheer joy of being with one another and helping out where we can. So of course we've learned healing can come from helping others because that's why we're here. We don't need any deity in the sky to tell us that. We just know that. RFR volunteers find meaning and purpose, of course, by volunteering in many, 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 many different ways. All of the services that we have talked about before are supported by our wide breadth of staff volunteers. But listen, we're always in need of more help. Absolutely. That's how we expand. That's how we give people breaks. It's how we, continue to, do what we do here. Is by, spreading out the support here. There are all sorts of jobs besides, of course, working the helplines. This is not a requirement. So if you're not a big, phone call person, you don't have to. You can, vetting, posting good resources for clients to use, hosting support groups, supporting the OC, IT support, tons and tons and tons and tons of opportunities to apply to volunteer. Please, you can go to a form online and fill out there, and we will post that link here shortly. And of course, we do have the 3-minute video on our main page to share with anybody about just, hey, RFR, what we do. So kind of that condensed version, kind of a elevator speech. Although if you're in the elevator for longer than 3 minutes, whew, brutal. Call Keanu Reeves. See if he can help you out. Rob.
I don't get that reference, but that's okay. Okay, so thank
What?
you. So
Movie night with Rob.
we're going to wrap this up. We'll talk about it later. Wrap this up on the recording part with Glenda giving her thoughts on this, which I'm going to be very interested because I was watching her video a lot tonight as Natalia was talking, and I don't think she actually pulled her hair out, but it looked like it might come to that. So Glenda, yes, what would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I was really close to pulling my hair out, which would be great because like a lot of people who got COVID, I have hair loss, so it'd be maybe not. And I just did it too. My guests have been flabbered, as they say. I was not the only one. Absolutely speechless. I started laughing as a stress response of just how insane and absurd all the information that you shared was. Natalia, every time you think that you can't hear of another unbelievable, harmful belief system, another one just like comes marching through your door. And I thought of a phrase while you were speaking that has always resonated with me since I heard it, which is the truth shall set you free, but first it's really, really going to piss you off. And I feel this way with the information that you shared of, yes, it is profoundly upsetting. Many of us, myself included, are survivors of domestic violence and domestic abuse. And while it is, again, profoundly upsetting to hear about these things, you need to arm yourself with knowledge. So now that I know about this, because I had never heard about this. First of all, rude for using language like constellations. As somebody who loves astronomy, I don't like that they're appropriating, and quantum entanglement, which is such a cool concept. I don't like that they're appropriating these terms for what really felt like was genuinely just like the wet dream for an abuser, just like a carte blanche to just keep hurting people. Specifically, I've got soup simmering on the stove, so I had to get up and stir it. It was good timing, but the family problems being resolved, specifically using that phrasing, was so dark. It was dark to imagine this type of misogynistic pseudoscience being utilized and empowered by abusive people to perpetuate systems of harm. So we're really glad that you came and spoke to us about these issues because, again, knowledge is power. It's why we have our resource page. It's why we're here. It's why we want to provide community, because we want to arm you with knowledge, especially those of you coming from harmful religious situations where the denial of knowledge, like the tree in the Garden of Eden, is seen as almost like a point of pride of not having awareness of things. So I really appreciate you coming out here and cursing us, I suppose, in some ways with your knowledge with this ideology. But thank you so much for letting us know about this. And to further our reach, to make an awkward segue, to further our reach we have a very big deal thing coming up on May 10th. We have our annual spring fundraiser. Again, May 10th. It's going to be hosted on The Line on YouTube. I will post that link in the chat shortly. Please come out and support us. Like the channel, give a comment, all those things. Again, that'll be here before we know it. I have been rambling for a long time now. Natalia, again, thank you so much for donating your time and your energy today to tell us about this concept. I'm going, as soon as my partner gets home, I'm just gonna info dump for about 45 minutes. So I hope he's prepared. What an incredible night. Thank you again so much for telling us about this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Glenda, and everyone who stayed this late hearing about this weird stuff. One thing that I said when I gave this talk at PsyCon, afterwards, I was talking to a group of women, and they all had the same look on their faces that I think you had during the presentation. They just couldn't believe that this was happening, and it was not in like a far away country with a completely different culture. No, it was something really similar to the US, and they could relate. So it could be happening here as well. And one thing that I told them is that we should never forget that we live in a very privileged bubble, and we still get domestic violence, and we still get misogyny, and we still get this weird stuff. Can you imagine in less privileged places where women have still less access to information than we do? How are they coping? So when people, I'm very afraid when people come to me and say, "Oh, do you think we still need feminism? I mean, haven't we conquered it all?" And I say, No, we haven't. We're not even close. And yes, we have to celebrate what we've already conquered, and it was a lot. But we still have a long way to go, and we shouldn't really see ourselves as references of the whole world, because we still live in democratic countries, and we are privileged enough to have received a good education. But
I
we are in a bubble, and we still are subject to domestic violence and to misogyny. So we still have a long way
So
to go.
what you're saying was brought home about a month ago. We had Melanie Teresa King on for the second time, and she told us that she was I don't remember if she was giving a talk or something. She was on in Africa, in one of the Central African nations, with her husband, who's a black man, and repeatedly he was asked how much he paid for her.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and, yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to like interject this really quickly, specifically when you, because you said that, do we still need feminism? I know this may seem like a silly argument to make, but this to me is one to arm yourself with to counter this. If when somebody says, do we still need feminism? And it comes to the argument about body hair on women, on do we still need feminism? Just in the most privileged Western whatever society you want to have, and just see either if you are a femme presenting person, or ask what it is like to navigate through public space with with armpit hair, leg hair, facial hair, that kind of thing. If you have PCOS, like as a woman, and you realize like how like, oh, this is something that harms no one, affects, doesn't involve anyone else's life whatsoever, absolutely has no effect on anybody else. If I personally have, I don't right now, but like if I personally grow out my armpit hair, and yet the reaction still, that is my little metric. That is my metric for measuring, like, do we still need feminism? Like, the most innocuous, the most innocent, doesn't matter. It's how my body naturally functions. It's not a big deal, whatever. And yet this is still response. That is once that bar is raised where literally no one gives a shit about a woman having body hair, then we can, you know what? Then you can come to me and say, do we still need feminism? Then you can come to me and say that. But you mentioned, can this happen here? And all of us, most of us are Americans here, and how terrifying this is, thinking of Project 2025, because yes, a lot of us, especially me, we're making facial expressions during the talk, because again, as a domestic abuse survivor from both physical abuse and emotional abuse, the paradigm, the using the language, and if you don't think that conservative Christians and conservative religious people, regardless of Christian or not, in the United States aren't going to be using language like that to like you. Actually, victim, you need to forgive me, and you also need to apologize. I wouldn't have hit you if you didn't make me do it. And so I hope everyone's taking some emotional time for themselves, because I certainly am going to need to afterwards, of the feeling of victim blaming and like it was my fault that these things happened to me type thing. So yes, oh boy, big one.
Oh, thank you, Glenda.
Well,
Love you
Appreciate it.
too. Yes, a lot.
let me tell you one funny story about, because you say, I think your argument about body hair is perfect. I'm a scientist, so I like to do comparisons and control groups. And I had the perfect situation to really have a perfect control group for misogyny and sexist remarks during the pandemic, when I was doing the YouTube show with my friend, because he's a man. And we were together hosting that YouTube show, The Plague Diaries, every Friday. And I got a lot of comments about my appearance. So every Friday, people would comment on my makeup, my hair, my clothes. They would complain that I was wearing the same blouse, or that my makeup wasn't good, or that I didn't do my eyebrows. And nobody would say a thing about him. And so there was one day where when we started a show, and I looked at him and I said, wow, you are wearing the same shirt as you did in episodes 1, 3, 5, and he was like, what? And I said, I'm sorry, I just had to I just had to say it because people keep saying and posting it in the chat about me all the time, and nobody complains that you always wear the same shirt.
David, you didn't do your eyebrows today. Where are your fleeky eyebrows? I'm, you know.
It has been a few days. I will admit. Yes.
But it was so
Wow.
funny because, and then of course he laughed and he said, "Well, I'm sorry. Would you want me to change?" And I said, "Yes, go change your shirt."
Yes.
It was, as I said, it was like a comic show. We cracked a lot of jokes. We had a great time, but it was true. And even in that show, there were a lot of people who were regulars and they were there all the time. And I still got people commenting on my appearance.
Oh yeah, I don't ever go on anytime I'm on any YouTube channel, and I work professionally as a model, so like I'm an appearance-based person, but I don't ever get through a single show where it doesn't like there's got to be commentary about my appearance, or and I'm not wearing any makeup now, but like you are wearing any makeup. It's like I don't are you paying me to right now at this moment in this very second? No? Okay.
Then no makeup for you.
Then no makeup for you. That costs money.
Okay, so as the last thing we're going to do while we're still being recorded, I was reminded to share the poll results, the final results.
Yes.
So let's look at this. David, go through this, please.
Yeah. So, have you ever heard of family constellations psychotherapy? These would have very different answers, obviously, now. So, we had 0 yes and participated. We had 2 people familiar with it, 4 having heard of it but not sure what it is. The vast majority, 81%, were no. So, now that is reversed to 0. Really, nobody picked the Sagittarius? Clearly, you were not constellated. Which really does sound like a weird version of constipated, just saying. But anyway, so have you encountered any psychotherapeutic methods that you later found out were pseudoscience? So 4 out of 30. Yes, it's happened several times. Ouch. Yes, once or twice, 6. So virtually 33% there. No, 43%. I just figured at that point you just need to, wait a little bit. And not sure, 7. So there we are. And number 3, have you ever experienced misogyny while receiving psychotherapy? Admittedly, I was a little surprised by these responses in a pleasant way. So yes, frequently, only 2. Yes, 4 people. So 21% out of 30. No was the majority of 18, so 62%, and not sure 5. So still, like I said, we are definitely nowhere near no longer needing feminism. And because the fact that it's only 62% said no is truly unfortunate. Especially in a setting where you should be utterly supported. That's anyway, not going to go off on my soapbox.